is our last session within the Cluj Innovation Days 2023. It's a session dedicated to academic digital innovation, which will be moderated by Kinga. Kinga, I will pass you the floor.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm very glad to meet an amazing colleagues from not from Cluj, but from Vienna, University of Vienna. We had the last panel, but I think it's most important because in these 3 days, we get some travel in our history and about data. We talk always the data, the big data, the research data, and for example, we talked the lady before about how is the genomes and 200 paper and it's not okay, and how we can what we can make with this data and how we can make this data. And I think it will be amazing discussion and presentation. So Mr. Raman Ganguly, nice to meet you and welcome to Cluj. Mr. Raman has a professional background in software development and media technology. He heads the IT support department of research at the Central Computer Center of the University of Vienna. He is responsible for the development and operation of the data management infrastructure. Since 2011, he has been archiving digital data from research and teaching, focusing on long-term availability. He is the technical manager of the open source archiving system Hydra, developed at the University of Vienna, and the technical coordination for the international network of this field, consisting of 21 institutions. Mr. Raman advised academic libraries on technical issues related to the data management, and also he is a lecturer in the university course data librarian and data steward. So, Mr. Raman, the stage is yours.
Thank you very much for the kind introduction. Thank you very much for having me here. It's the third time now that I'm in Cluj, and thank you. Yeah, this is okay. Thank you. So it's the third time for me in Cluj, and I'm always happy to be here. It's very great, and it's always very inspiring, and I enjoy the conference so far. It's really great. So my part, I like to call it not a presentation, I like to call it a workshop. And that means that you can interrupt me anytime if you have any question, if you have any comment, any remarks. Please feel free to interrupt me, raise the hand, and I hope I have the eye that I will see who wants to talk. And I will also take this in two parts, and inspired by the day today, I will bring it in three parts. So my first idea was to do the introduction of data management, like a short presentation, and also this is what is possible also to interrupt me anytime. And then afterwards I would like to have a discussion, because the input what you have on data management, what you are doing, what your experience is all about sharing information, and data management is about sharing information, and we can learn from each other, and that's very important. And also I like to have it the opportunity also for me to learn from you as well. And so this would be the second part, and I will now put something in between. because of the talks of AI and also the last session of the data from the health sector. I got some ideas what I've seen also in many fields of data management, which is kind of important to address this also. And I've taking some notes during the sessions, and I will then talk a little bit also of my ideas or the things what came up from my side from the sessions before. So let's jump into it with starting of the context of data management. So this is very focusing on the situation of academic, because I do this at the university, and the university is a little bit different of how it works and how it's functioned, because the money came from external funding institutions, so to doing research. So that's and the research is doing inside of the institutions or in collaboration with other institutions. And then you have bigger frameworks and bigger networks and bigger regulations. So we are in a very complex environment when we are talking about universities, and this we have to consider also in data management. But also when it comes to the industry, data management is important. So we are talking now a lot that data are the new oil, and I see data management as the refinery to make the data usable, to then bring it really to production and make something in. So the data management is also essential for other things, not only for the academia side. So when we see here, there are three circles. There are three circles. The top one, there are three, I picked up three acronyms that I want to make it closer and also explain it here. The first is the EOSC. This is the European Open Science Cloud. This is something what been funded 2018, but it has a history which goes 2040. And the idea is of the European Open Science Cloud is that funding money for research infrastructure, which are big infrastructure, which are used by many researchers, should go together, and so that not duplicating services, especially when it came to data management, especially when it came to sharing data, when it came to compute data. So there's also now change a little bit, but there are compute infrastructure as well. There are data management infrastructure. There are archiving infrastructure, and there are big research infrastructure like from the high energy physics, like CERN. They're also part of the European Open Science Cloud. So all these move together, and we now have a legal entity as well, and these are shaping the governance of how we are working, or how in Europe research should be treated, the data from research should be treated. So that's why it's very important. It's a very high level thing. And on the other side, we have this RDA. This is Research Data Alliance. This is a bottom up. So these were something that researcher from several disciplines come together and was talking about how we can share our data. We don't have the infrastructure. We don't have the possibility. What should we do? How can we build this kind of infrastructure? How can we bring it more together, our data? And now it's also going to the European Open Science Cloud. So RDA is at the moment also a very important part at the the European Open Science Cloud. And the middle thing is a guiding principle how to work with data. These are the FAIR principles, and these came out from the life science, and it addresses in the beginning the problem that a lot of research which are data driven cannot be easily reproduced. and very important thing for research is the reproducibility. So that's why they address it with the fair data principles, and this is also a guiding principles of the European Open Science Cloud. So these are the high level things which are giving a kind of structure where we are doing our data management. Then we have our institutions. The institutions are now challenged because the culture of research is changing when it gets more data driven. So we heard today that we have a lot of data, and the question is how to work with these many data, with this big data, and is it also possible on an institutional level to deal with such kind of data? Or is it more of sharing the data, so more institutions came together, how this can be addressed, how we can deal with all the things? That's also on an institutional level, because all the regulations what you have on the institutions, this goes beyond, and we also have to think about in a broader sense, and also bring new services to the institution, and which is also very challenging. So, and then we have the funding organizations, and the funding organizations are now wanted to push forward the openness, so the open data, the citizen science, so also open up science, with the idea there's a lot of public money in research, and what is funded by the public should also be a value for the public again. And so the open data is a very big driver for the funding agencies and also citizen science, but for these you also have the infrastructure, but the funding agencies are funding research, not the infrastructure. So there's also a big challenging here in this thing to bring a new culture, to bring a new way of making research into the whole ecosystem. So I mentioned before the IRSC. This is the newest logo. They have changed over the time also with the logo, so but this is the newest logo from the legal entity. So they have been established I think now 3 years ago, a legal entity in Belgium, and this is nothing else at from there are representatives from these big infrastructures like CERN, but also like GIAN. GIAN is a consortium of all the academic networks, so the internet providers for the universities. They have in every country have their organization, and all these organizations have an umbrella organization. This is called GIAN, and this is also very important, and they have a big role also in the European Open Science Cloud. So, and but also not the very basic and very technical parts of research data management, also representatives from the libraries. So there is Open Air. Open Air is a project which is also a European funding project. It is now in the fourth state, and these are focusing on open access publications, and now they're focusing more on open data. So, and there are also big players in the European Open Science Cloud. So you see that's covering the whole range of where the data being generated, how the data can be transported all over Europe, and where the data can be processed, to how the data can be organized and can be managed. So these all are now in this organization, in this big organization, but it's representing different parts, and these different parts are then different organization as well. So it's a little bit complex, but it was a good idea not to build something completely new. It's better to bring all this player together. I have then I heard that the presentations will be available for you. So there are two links. So there are the information of the European Open Science Cloud from the Commission side, so you can have a look there. And also there is a link to the EOS portal. That's one of the actual, it's more than a prototype. So there you can already enter data which came from research from European level. The next is the bottom-up approach, what I mentioned. This is the Research Data Alliance. The Research Data Alliance is a completely open organization. So the structure is, they have an office. The office is run, I think, by 3 people, and they are managing the working groups and the interest groups from all over the world. So there are really, so everybody are allowed to join. That's very easy. Go on the website and say, I want to be part of RDA. Then you are part of the RDA. And then the work groups and the interest groups are completely open. You can join every working group and every interest group. You there have a newsletter. You get the newsletter from there. Some are active, some are not that active. And the difference between the working groups and the interest groups are the working groups have to produce in 3 years a specific outcome, and the interest groups are more bringing the people together and discussing problems. So a lot of working groups came out of the interest groups. So it started very domain specific. So there is for agriculture research, there are for Earth observation research working groups and interest groups. But now it's more broader. So there's also for librarians and interest groups and so on. And then you have these working groups as well. And a lot of recommendations which are the results, or some of the results from the working group are now adopting in data centers, in data management organization, and so especially when it comes to data management plans, this is a kind of project plan for data, how to work with data, and during a project, it's like a project plan, but focusing and telling this from the perspective of a data. And I have to mention there is a very close other organization. This is Core Data, and the Core Data, it makes similar things, but it's more an educationing, so education in doing data management, and is focusing also on Africa and Southern America and Asia, and they are both organizations are working very close together, and that's both want to cover the whole world. They do every 2 years a data science week, and this week is this year in Austria, in Salzburg, so it's not far away from Cluj, and it's in October, and it's core data. It's also free. You can join there, so it's really quite interesting, and it's very inspiring, but because it's a big event, and you meet there a lot of interesting people, and it's a lot of discussions and a lot of working, joining working groups and joining us interest groups. The other one is what I mentioned before, the guiding principles, how we are working with data. These are the FAIR data. The FAIR is an acronym. It stands for findability, accessibility, interoperability, and reusable. So, just a moment. The first time when it came up, it was addressing the problem of reproducibility from the life science. And it's also, they say, it's important to have a better quality on the research paper, and it's necessary that the data are available and we can work with the data. So that's why we need the guiding principles, because when we don't find the data, this is not reproducible. When we cannot access the data, then it's worthless. We cannot work with the data, then it's like there's not there. So this is very important. I have here a link to the original article. It's from the Nature, and you can read this. And also there's in Europe a big organization. This is GoFair. It's also transnational, this organization, and their idea is to foster all the fair data movement in Europe. And fair data was originally from Europe, but it's now adopting also in the US, in Canada, and in Australia. So fair data is at the moment also very international. A few years ago, it was very interesting when I was in the US, and they was also talking a lot about fair data, but they mean completely a different thing. So they mean that the data should be fair, without any bias. So that's not resists or some other things inside of the data. So, but now they're also adopting fair data as we see it in Europe. I don't know how they are now working with these terms. Maybe they are going to ethical data and fair data. These are now a little bit of the context, so it's a lot of context what I've give you. And now the question is how we bring or how we do the data management itself, how we can make data fair. And we have done this a long time at our university, and we have the big problem that we are very much inside of the fair data movement, and we know a lot of things about this and know how to work with the data, but then we have to make the support, have to talk to the researchers, and they had no idea. So that's why we developed a workflow model that should help in discussion with researcher, or also in now in training new persons who are making data management also at our university to understand data management better. So these looks very complicated, but it isn't. It's more or less there are 4 phases. The first phase is the pre-ingest phase. The pre-ingest phase is this phase where the data are generated. And in this phase, it's the focus is on the quality of generating the data. So that's not in preserving the data, that's really seeing in which way the data should be generated. So all the focus on data quality, all the stuff is here in the first phase. And there are some issues that could be addressed also in the first phase, which is going to the data management, especially when it goes to social science and you have some legal aspects, because when you are dealing with personal data, then you should clarify what you are allowed to do. Also in the data management, if you are allowed to archive this, so you also need to get the permissions from the persons you are working with. So this is very important also to doing just right to the beginning, but because afterwards it would be very hard or very time consuming to get all this legal information and all the things that you are allowed to do this. So these are something, but more or less we are focusing here on generating the data. In the second phase, this is then a handover phase. This is the ingest. So it's also a change of responsibility inside of the data management. First, the responsibility lies by the people who are producing the data. They are responsible for the quality. They are responsible for the data. When it comes to data management, then it's a handover to a more central service, because they are often project orientated. So after 3 years, the people are changing. So you don't know where then to find the people, and then it's hard to find the data. So the FAIR principle means that you need some central or some place where it's clear that there are the data. And so that's why you hand over from the data producer to a central data management. And that's possible to understand the data and to preserve the data, you need additional informations. And these additional informations are coming here in this phase. And also you have to look a little bit closer on which kind of data you are dealing with. So because you have to see which kind of infrastructure are possible to put the data in. Because not every infrastructure can can be used for every kind of data. So that's why also you have to look at the formats, you have to look at which kind of data this is, and then decide where to put the data. The data management itself, the third phase, is a very simple thing. So this is that the data, what we get from the data producer, to keep the quality over the time. So over the time, this means also the data creator defines how long should be the data be preserved. So maybe for 10 years, maybe for 20 years, maybe for 3 years, or long term. This means for the eternity. And and this is what the data management must do to know how long the data should be preserved. Should the data be deleted? This can also be an issue for some research fields, that the data must be deleted after a different time. So also the data management must know this, but the rest is keeping up the quality. That's not an easy task, especially when it comes to long-term preservation. But I want not go very deep in the long-term preservation, but it can be very challenging. But in the end, it's about keeping the data alive and keeping the data accessible. And the another question is keeping the data interoperable. And this is also looking more into formats. Are the formats interoperable, or are these the formats who are more specific to a company? So this is also a lot of open data, so in a sense of open format and a sense of open source. If you can use open source software, it's more likely that the data are interoperable also in the future. So especially when it came to long-term preservation, it's more and more important to see also the data formats and look at these and see if these data are really open data in the sense of the format. And the third thing is what the data management must do is give the people access who are allowed to access. So we are not talking only about open access. We're not talking about only open data. So there can also be restricted data. But you have to know. You have to know who is allowed to access the data. And that's why it's also from a perspective of the data. It could be a very easy format, so everything is open, but there are sensitive data inside, and you have to build a special infrastructure where the people have come maybe to the institution and access the data because they are so sensitive, or have a very secure technical surrounding that you are sure that the data are not leaving the institution without any permission. The fourth phase, that's the really important phase. This is the reuse phase, because all the things what we are doing without reusing, it makes no sense. So we don't do it because we like to do data management. We are doing this because we want to reuse the data. And these are also the part. Reusing can be by human, Can be by another researcher, can be by a company, can be by an AI. So these are also, when it came to AI, we heard also today that the question of the data, where are the data and how is the data organized? Also the reuser could be a machine as well, and from this perspective also data management is very important if you or if a company wants to go to the direction of AI. What happened in the ingest phase? So what makes the difference between the data, what we are getting in the ingest phase, and then what we are doing with this? So I already told you that there are additional informations we put to the data. So we are talking about after the ingest phase from a digital object, not from data anymore, because we have the data itself. So we are not collecting metadata. So there are some archiving systems which are collecting only meta information about the data. But in our sense, we are really focusing also on the data itself. So we have the data, and then we have the metadata. So these are the additional informations to make also the data fair. So there are also standards, exchangeable standards. This is for the findability as well. So that search engines or meta portals which are collecting metadata can know which kind of data you are collecting, which kind of data you have. So this is for the findability, very important as well. Then you have a persistent identifier, at least one. You can have more, but you need a persistent identifier that you make sure that you will always find the same data when it go to this place. So this is a very important thing, that you are trusted your system, that you have always go to the same kind of data. So if you are cited in a research paper and you want to go to the data and you have there the identifier, you need to go to the same data. This is a very tricky situation when it came to databases, because databases can change the data. So you also have to keep track when these identifiers have been done. Because if you want to reproduce the results of the research paper, you have to have the same data as to this time. Then you have a license. The license is from the funding agency, because they want to go more to open data. They want to have the Creative Commons license, but in many senses not possible. So you have to also to think about which kind of license you put in here, because the license make it clear that what reuser can do, are allowed to do. Because when you reuse, you hand over also the data to somebody else, and you don't know how they work with the data. You can rely that the people who are treating like the license you put on it, it's not in your responsibility to go after this, so that you have other entities for like the legal system. They are look at this, or should look at this. But in the end, you need a kind of license that the people know what they are allowed to do. And the other thing is the ownership. So we think that's very important to know who's the owner of the data. Also in the case of when researchers are moving. So a research career, when you start very likely in another organization where you then get a professorship. So you're moving from institution to institution. And so you have to know also who have, from where are the origin of the data, who have produced the data, and also who belongs to the data. So these are the valid information. The owner is very important also in this sense. What kind of data could it be? That's a very overview. So but it's challenging in the sense of the infrastructure. So this is from the point of view of an infrastructure, what you need to do with different kind of data. So we have file-based data, so that's what everybody knows. So that's what you have on the computer. Everything is stored in a file. This is classical repositories. So repositories, they're working like publication repositories. You upload the file to the repository, describe it with the metadata, you get a persistent identifier, and everything is fine. So this is basically what the easy way. This is basically what we can do every time. This is what repositories, also like the repositories, what we are developed at our university, can do. But even when it comes to data, like we heard it in the session before, you have the genomics data, the huge data, or you have a lot of data. When you have 3,000 files, you don't want to upload it by hand, and you don't want to describe everything by hand. So there must be also some ways how to do it, and the question is a repository, a classical repository, really the way how you want to work with this data. So they are also when it comes to big data, you have to think about which kind of infrastructure you are implementing and you work with. The second problem, or the second kind of data, what we are going there are the databases. This is the databasing. The databases are a living system. So you can make a dump of a database, put it in a repository, but nobody will download it and then install a database and then import all the data. So you need a kind of infrastructure where the data are accessible in a way that you can put in a query and get the result. So then you are citing the query and not the data. And then you have to think about, okay, what are the changes? Have there been data cleaning? Have there been something deleted in the database? Have there been something added to the database? So also you have to know when this query originally was set up, and then you have to think about how to get the same result. So that's also a very challenging thing when it came to databases. And also that when it comes to long-term preservation, the database system, the database software itself also can change. So how you do the migrations. The other way is software, and we see software also as data, because software also can have, especially when it comes to interpretation of the data, there's often very important, how the data are interpreted. So the software are also very essential. And in some research areas, now software are developed to make new visualization, which gives insight of the data, other insight of the data which you cannot only show when you only have the data, especially the humanities working like this way. So also the software could be very problematic, because on one side you need only the software code. That's easy. You have software repositories, you can put it there, or you have a running application, and this is then very challenging. So when you're now from an institution and you want to implement some infrastructure for data management, so we have then some guiding principles which you should consider when you're starting with this. The first is what kind of data you're managing. Are you organization which only have a very similar kind of data? Then it's easy for you. Or you're an institution where you have a big variety of data, then it's very challenging. And when it's very challenging, then also the question is, could there be a network? Could you work with other institutions together, and so that not every institution need every kind of infrastructure for every kind of data. So this is also the question how to work together, to collaborate, to bring the ideas together, to work together on this field of data management. Also, the support structure. Even if you don't want to have the infrastructure at your institution, you need a support structure because they are their researcher and they want not to go somewhere else. They want to ask someone in your institution when they have a problem. So you need a support structure and you also have to build a support structure. And this support structure could be also very disciplinary. So you have people, they are called now data stewards. They should work, they should came from the research discipline where they are giving the support in data management. So they're an expert in the field and an expert in data management. And they should help research projects in sustaining the data. And the other question is the infrastructure you're building sustainable? Because when you say you're doing long-term preservation of data, and then the infrastructure itself is not long-term, same open is in don't and help and help only when work you're broad behind use and well and just to that you can always position a solve every you don't know which problem have to that you are that can help inside. You can even if you need some specialist ability in some way ability. And at our university holders, you can then pick up here I'd just like to give a brief information about time. And here, so we didn't find something done by our story. Uh, uh, very well a bit because and then for our we now, which is over more countries, not only in Austria. We have partners in Italy, we have partners in Western Balkans, so Montenegro, Bosnia-Herzegovina, and Serbia. And some of them, they're really very expert in them, so they are also doing some development, improve it's a diverse, just use because they have other bar, but these problems could so far. So these what do we get? Do are the good we can improve. Also see our project more than just with that. We also in consultancy can address the problems and we can and see what this have the brand our have because everything also some on conferences, so change it a little bit because we will have the audit and you can also update it soon because we are middle in the planning of everything. So, but here you have the link. You can go there and in November and about data management and trust. So nice and there's also the theory with introduction. I think if you have more information, it's also fine.
Yes.
Raman, thank you very much for your presentation. Cluj IT is an umbrella organization. Also, the time and the like the uh, uh,
You can force to have to do this part of this to other so like, and we run for them the infrastructure, these exit scenarios, so that if somebody don't, we have contracts about have to, and they get the virtual machine. Uh, of the of some networks which are international. The network or situation we can discuss. Maybe you have some problem with this. Again, you can also
Part of the connection. I mean,
can me talk what you come Then uh, like uh, uh, okay, coming late West Geo and we are in, uh, was in, um, so
Oh,
mm, it's all our with the uh, grow our community. I don't think that Finland, because Finland is very centralized. Uh, but I see a big opportunity with to go more to the not exploit countries at the moment, with each other. That's not. I have the better feature. This is the better. Grow and work together. Yeah.
together.
And after that also to important, not towards kind of things that we can that is still naturally I will say that because standing up the kind of but so, um, the, that because being say for example, you and all this type
With uh, not to the not for two also bring some is and how not so better from what at the uh check yeah good so do this that with the research they want drill first ex- between very question due to all managed not Euro HPC joined on the both are working close together or also by competing in all data if you have heard together with the this is not owned by one university European infrastructure and when it came to big together that you don't have to bring terabytes of data daily over the wire. Mhm.
The government to
Mhm.
invest a lot in digitalization.
Mhm.
They have been also supported by the government to build the cloud infrastructures, but there is no collaboration between these resources in Romania, which is incredible. Organization of these resources and maybe it's an advice which I'm expecting from your case. This and together in the data to work together for all of them.
I do this also.
We don't.
We talked about shared services from IT perspective, and then it was no, why we should do shared services? It would cost my job. So and this was the thinking, and now you see, okay, it's more challenging. Now they are talking again about shared services. So, but it was 10 years in between, and the good thing is on data management is that you need a lot of resources. So we see that on the when you have the problem of investing a lot, then the people are more willing to come together and work together. But it also takes a lot of time of talking to people, convince them that it's good. And there's also a lot of, I wouldn't say mistrusting, I would say of fearing that something is not under their control for 100%. And so for me, when I have my data on my desk, I feel completely secure because that's under my desk. I know where it is. Even when the hard drive is breaking, then I think it's under my control. But that's just a feeling, and addressing a feeling is always hard. And so this need a lot of energy and not a lot of talk and a lot of time. And I know it could be very annoying, but I think the people are in a position where it's not able anymore to do everything by their own. And that's a good point. Yes. Data management is always a lot of challenges.
So I don't have a question actually, but it's two things. But I can add to what Stellion's asking. So actually, you know, everything that has been done in a couple of years, that's a pretty good use case that you can use. I mean, Raman kind of started in the beginning, you know, with only the University of Vienna, and then it's quite a cluster currently, you know. So I think we can really use that. And the other thing that I wanted to say is that when Raman kind of mentioned, you know, we're trying to expand the community. Well, actually, the reason we are here is that we had contact with Daniel, your vice president, who kind of introduced us or connected us to a number of African universities that he's kind of working with. So it's actually the fault of the Cluj IT that we're here anyway. So we actually developed that flyer in order to kind of promote. Yeah, we can use it for here, but it's probably it was in the beginning meant to promote FIDRA for the African universities we're going to discuss with. So, but we are more than happy to help you out with any use cases or stuff that could help you.
Yeah, I think maybe Andre, we have to know that because of this national program for reconstruction to organize an event where to invite the universities, understanding how they can.
Yeah, I was thinking of the same. I was thinking of the same thing because, as Stelian was saying, there is this program running now where universities in Romania have access to a lot of funding to address digitalization. And as we know from previous experience, they will all think in a very silos way, and they will approach every single one of them will approach differently digitalization and very individually. And I think that's wrong, because we are talking about public universities mostly. We are talking about public resources which are not used as they should be. And I think, especially when we are talking about scientific data produced by public universities, with public resources, that should be a public good in some way. In some way, it should be a public good. And and the repository, like you have built at the University of Vienna, it's one response to this, I would say, societal challenge and European ambition, otherwise, to build a wide scientific European community where sharing data is a common and daily practice. And this is not happening yet, unfortunately, but I see that you are taking steps in this direction, and that's very good. Yeah, we will think of some practical ways in which we can promote this because it's aligned with our values. It's very good that you decided to come, because this way we learned about this initiative, and it's a good discussion that we started here. In a previous life, I worked for the University of Babes-Bolyai as a consultant in management and project management, and we had a very good partnership with the University of Vienna at that time, and I saw that there is a lot of forward thinking in the University of Vienna, and I think we can learn from each other continuously. And yeah, so we have to think of a way in which we can promote more in the academic environment here in Romania what you are doing in Austria.
Thank you. That was great words, and it's all about bringing the people together. That's the main issue. So that's not what technology can do. So we can talk. We need to talk together and see how we can work together to address the problems. And as you mentioned, this is all taxpayers' money, and we should be very careful what we are doing with this and not waste it. And also the data, what we produce at the universities with public money, this is a public good, and it should be treated like this. And we should take care of this, and that a lot of people can make use of it. And when we are going to the fair principles, that also means that a lot of people should use it, because the big value is in the reusing of data. And and that's why we are very close with this whole, even if it's not possible to bring everything open because of restriction that are clear. When it's to personal data, that's clear, you cannot open it. But the guiding principles should be the open principles, open data, open access, open source, and all these things, because we are talking about public good.
Yes, it's true. And I think we have in Romania some problem with the trust. Like a researcher, I have a big data with all kind of results, but okay, it's not about me, but usually if I have trust to share my data, my results, we have this problem. We need to be more and more open about for that.
I said, let's assume that we, Cluj IT, will succeed in the future to organize this kind of event. It might be possible to bring in that kind of event some use cases where to convince the audience that because of this initiative, different research groups or other kind of, let's say, initiatives in different universities succeeded to benefit and bring more value added for their own interest just because they were part in, or are, yeah, of course, are part in this kind of network for data management and repository, because I think that could be, in my view, a way to make them even understanding the potential, and also to have from our side arguments that yeah, this is necessary.
So I think also that's necessary, and I think also um, some things what we heard today address the same thing. We heard in the session today about the startups, that we need to also think about mindsets. So we had here to address the issue of trust, and the trust is very important. But it's also when it comes to your personality mindset. So we are, especially I also one of these persons who are thinking about, when I am getting connected with somebody else, someone else must earn my trust. But we also can change it. We trust them firsthand, and he have or she have to earn my mistrust. That change a lot, because then you go to the people more openly in that, because you think that you can trust everybody. And then at the situation when you see, okay, there's a mistrust, then you react to this. And not in forehand, I'd be a little bit scared before that I don't know how the other person is working with me. It's also changing the mindset. But this is a cultural thing. This is something what have to grow inside of a society, inside also of a person itself.
And to learn that, to trust and to change the mindset. For example, we have the problem, we don't want to share, to put our results in the cloud, because somewhere something probably want to get our results.
Yeah, yeah, please. No, but this is stupid, because we have to share the ideas. It's a matter then who will be capable to put them into practice. It's the same with data. We have collected data, as many inventors I have seen. They have an idea, but they say it's just a top secret. I'll never share with the others. But I need your money to make this big thing. So how can I trust you in that case if you are not capable to share? And in this respect, I think we have to work, and I'm speaking from the angle of Cluj IT. We had competing companies, and we have competing companies in our cluster, but we succeeded to build up an institutional mechanism of trust, including also the mechanism for intellectual property management, even of ideas. And in that respect, we have seen the possibility for using experts from different organizations, where also universities are part in several of our projects, to work together and to share this, their experiences, etc. So maybe we also have to take into account this issue of intellectual property and copyright and other stuff as part of the, let's say, intangible asset that can be handled in sharing this, yeah, these resources between the universities, because in that way I believe the innovation can be accelerated. Yesterday we had an intervention of our mayor who said, I have no idea how much is accelerated the innovation due to the networking, but I didn't want him to intervene. I know that there are even researches that prove that just because of networking, the level of innovation accelerating with the third power, not 2 times. So it's a third or second power, increasing the acceleration. And that is the reason we need to encourage this kind of networking and sharing of resources, because after that, okay, it's a matter of investment, doing the whole mechanism of innovation project. But if you stop this, and that was the necessity, and I so much pleased about this presentation, that there is an initiative, we have something in our hands to share with the others to change their mindset.
Yes, I think that's really the point, um, about sharing the things, and even if you're in a competition field, to be able to share things, and I think that's very important, and that's what I really liked, what I have seen so far on the Cluj IT, from the company perspective, that they are not in the way of, they have the big goal and they want to bring everybody to the big goal, and not I will be the first and the rest have to lose. So this is another kind of mindset also. So to bring the whole thing to to uh, to grow everything and not just me, and that's also about mindset, and I think that's the a sense of sharing,
The
that
culture.
the culture of sharing.
Yeah, of sharing.
Sure, yeah. Yes. Thank you. I think that would be a wonderful. Oh, there's another.
For the
For the,
for all nine.
My name is Sorin Pop, and I don't know, obviously an outsider of this talk, but maybe a glimpse of what I want to say will help, because I'm used to do things for no reason, no reason at all. I've heard a lot about problems. Maybe the mindset that you're trying to change here can start exactly here. We're not talking here about problems, we're talking opportunities, I think. Also, the trust issue, not problem. Okay, I said I'm an outsider. I'm not a scientist, I'm not a scholar, I'm a nobody. But I don't know if you come from the technical field or not. Do you know anything about the sawtooth signal? Okay, so the ones that you do, this is gaining trust and losing it. And you know what I'm talking about. Changing this mindset, it's awfully hard, if not impossible, because from the ancient times till now, we do trust and mistrust people. We trust them kind of hard, and we're losing trust very fast. No, we all do, even the old ones, as I am. And I've seen that in youngsters, because I've worked with them, and so. What I'm trying to bring you is a glimpse of from the outside. And what I see here, that you have a problem. I did wanted to avoid this word, a problem of marketing. I'm an engineer, I'm not even nearby marketing, but you have to let the others see what you're doing. And you know, the Bible in the Genesis, after the each day says something like that, and God has seen that it's good. You have to let the others see that it's good what you're doing. And my, I don't know, not a proposal, a suggestion, and so try to involve other organization. Try to involve key opinion leaders, guys which are not in your team, but can speak, which are trusted with a high, very high level of trust, try to make them speak about you and about your project, and try to involve these ONGs and other organizations, which I think will do gladly something like that. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And you are completely right. We have to change also the mindset in when we are talking about this, not talking about problems, talking about the opportunities. And I see it also in this way that we are in a very interesting time where we have a lot of new opportunities and to really make very interesting things. And all the challenges, what's coming there or what's on the road, we will find a way. And what you talk about, the marketing and let's other talk about this, about what we are doing. So I'm also not a marketing guy. But I try. That's why I'm here, and I enjoy it very much to be here. Thank you. So,
Any questions? If no, thank you very much again and again for this amazing
Thank you.
presentation. I told you it will be a great presentation and discussed.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ganguly. Kingo, I think it's the perfect way to end the day where the innovation was the leitmotif. And to all of you, I want to thank you for being part of this 3 days journey called Cluj Innovation Days. I'm sure that was a quite experience for you. And before I end, I just want to tell you, stay close to us, stay close to Cluj IT, because as we are hard working on building a resilient ecosystem based on innovation, we are bringing a lot of opportunities for you, a lot of opportunities for for the whole ecosystem, and it would be shame not to benefit from. So thank you once again for being part with us here, and have a nice weekend.